I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David M. Walker. Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to another episode of Beyond the Culture. And I have an outstanding conversation with a young lady who came on the show. But before we get into the conversation, I want to remind you, which I do every week, to hit that subscribe button. I want you to subscribe to the show. That way, every week when Beyond the Culture comes on, you'll get notified that we're on, and you can listen to the show on iTunes, or you can watch us on our YouTube channel. So I want you to subscribe to the show. That way, every week, you know when Beyond the Culture comes on. Now, the second thing I always ask is that you share the show. If you like these conversations that we have each and every week, hit the share button so your friends and your relatives and those that you like can get the show and know that it's on, so that way they can watch Beyond the Culture too. So listen, I'm ready to get into this conversation today. I have a young lady with me. Her name is Tywanna Smith. Now, Tywanna is the president and founder of the Athletes Nexus, where she helps professional athlete clients protect their assets, build and monetize successful brands, coordinate community initiatives, secure marketing endorsements, and this is the part that I love the most, she prepares them for life after the game. Tywanna is the author of the best-selling book, Surviving the Lights, and I know this part here, she could probably talk about it all day. She's the mother of two, Tyson and Tatum. Listen, I am super excited to have Tywanna Smith on the show today. Tywanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm introduction, and thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to talk about what I do because I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, so let's do this. Take about 30 seconds just to, whatever I didn't say that you want to share with this audience today about what you do.
Well, you basically hit all of the buttons, but I do like to share that because I have experience on all sides of the ball. I too am a former professional basketball player who has now delved into an area of helping athletes navigate life. Everything outside the lines of the game, there are enough people helping on that end. I am the one that is the athlete's advocate to ensure that they have the proper information and they're making the best decisions for themselves. So just happy to advance the game.
And again, that's the part that I love about being a advocate for the athletes, because they know how to play and they get coaching on the field and all those different things. And but there's so many components to being a college athlete and then a professional athlete, and that's your area of expertise. So before we go forward, I want you to take us back a little bit, because I know you just didn't land in sports. You got to have a sports background. You had to have played the game in order to have a feel for it. So take us back to whether you want to go to high school, college, pro career. Just tell us all about your athletic background.
Yeah, well, I come from a basketball family. I had an older cousin who was my mentor, Marcus Brown. He's now part of the coaching staff at Murray State University. And at the time that I was coming up, he was an elite athlete and he was drafted into the NBA. So it's very special to have that close relationship with him, because he took me under his wing and taught me the ropes of how business worked outside the lines. Ironically, he tore his ACL the year before I tore mine while I was in high school. And so the combination of having his guidance and leadership, but also experiencing a season-ending injury, really brought me face to face with the prospect of how important it was to have this strong support system and these processes in place to ensure that you're still successful outside of sports. And so that is what piqued my interest in the business management side of sports management. And I haven't looked back since. And he's still, a dear mentor to me today.
So you said that you played professional ball.
Mm-hmm, I did.
Tell us about, but did you say would you play college? Did you say that?
No, so
Tell us
I
here.
played college. Yeah, played college basketball at Ole Miss. Hotty toddy. Very, very proud of my university, and we produce a lot of incredible athletes as well. We just had a young lady drafted into the WNBA. She went third in the WNBA draft, so I'm very excited about that. But yeah, I went to Ole Miss and I studied marketing and business management. I also earned my MBA there, and I actually took a gap year right when I came out of undergraduate to get my knees cleaned up. As I mentioned, I tore my ACL in high school, and so I did suffer with various knee injuries. And so I took a gap year, earned my MBA, and then I went overseas to fulfill my dream of being a professional basketball player. And I got the opportunity to play in Europe for 2 years.
That's awesome because, obviously, unfortunately, both you and your cousin Marcus had ACL injuries, and usually that comes with the game, which most athletes don't anticipate, don't expect. We
They don't.
expect, from the beginning to end, the career to go through, and then sometimes there's an accident and an
Right.
injury which can shorten a career.
Right. I
Yeah, go
look
ahead.
at it as a great thing, though. I really recall that moment as one of the best moments of my life and my career. And I tell you why, because it forced me, now that I'm on the other side of this thing, it forced me to really take in this entire experience and put it into perspective, right? Of course, we have a lot of athletes and student athletes that are so consumed in the sport that it becomes their identity and they struggle with a lot of issues beyond. But it forced me to sit down, right? Be still for just a moment and just consider where sports fits in the big picture. And so, I tell people this story all the time. I was always an astute student, but
Hmm.
I took it to the next level. Okay. So I cannot be on the court and do something that I love, but you know what? I'm used to winning. And so I'm going to be successful in my studies. So I'm sitting at the front of the classroom. I'm turning in my work early. I'm overachieving. I'm graduating with honors. And it really showed me how and taught me how to be a complete person, a complete success, and not just a successful athlete. So it was actually one of the best moments, in my career because it taught me more than anything else I can recall.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Um, they sometimes injury is unanticipated and it can shorten a career.
Mhm.
But even if you have a lengthy career or you play collegiate athletics or even make it to the pros like you did, and even if you have a full athletic career, there is still what you call after the game.
Yeah.
At some point, the game will end because you cannot play athletically forever. So there's an after the game part. So I want to bring this up because I found a quote by you where you said, "My vision is to transform athlete development through programming that aids African American athletes in achieving success beyond sports." And that's the
Yeah.
part I want to grab a hold to now. That you've taken a long distance view of after the game, and now you
Yeah.
want to make sure that athletes are well prepared, well taken care of when the game is over. So just talk about that particular aspect of your profession.
Yeah. So because I am a former athlete who has competed at a high level, I recognize the challenges. I recognize the pressure. Okay. And then I've transitioned for the last 15 years of being an athlete's advocate, where I am literally walking beside these young men and women as they're saying, listen, I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. I'm a little
Mm.
nervous. Now I'm turning my attention to the people tasked with leading them. And we will see a lot of this, to come in the next few years. Um, Athlete development professionals, these institutions that are in place to teach them, especially with NIL, right? There comes a great responsibility to educate these young people on how to navigate those decisions. But it has to be a structured process. You can't throw a lot of information at these young people and expect them to be able to discern what's applicable to them, what's meaningful and relevant. And so I am attempting to help the people in place to support these young people do things in a systematic way, but ensure that you're reaching them and you're engaging them in a language that they can understand. And so I've created programming, and that's essentially what my dissertation research is on. I'm also a doctoral student at the University of Memphis, and we have some incredible things in store that I think can transform that athlete development landscape. But that is my life's mission.
You just added something to the conversation. You brought up the term NIL,
Mm-hmm.
and I want you to talk about that a little bit because it's fairly new to the
Mm-hmm.
athletic scene at the collegiate level, and everyone doesn't know NIL. We know that it means it's an acronym for name, image, and likeness.
Right.
Just tell us about it. How is it impacting the athletes, and how are you helping them with NIL if in any way that you are?
Yeah. Um, on the one hand, I feel like it is convoluting the conversation in just a little bit because there were already challenges in the way that, and I want to throw this out there as well. I do have another book coming out here very soon in the next couple of weeks. And one thing I do in that book is attack the language, after sports. Okay. Life after sports, outside the game. Okay. Because when you say that, it insinuates to an athlete that they have a little bit more time, right? I can wait until after sports are done to begin preparing, and we don't want them to procrastinate. But one thing I think it does convolute that conversation because you have elite athletes who these opportunities are typically designed for. But then you have other student athletes who may not have the same visibility or marketability, who may feel left out of the conversation. The best advice that I can offer now, in the way that I advise those families who consult with me, even at the high school level, on how to get engaged in this money grab, is to take control of it and still pursue opportunities that will enhance your skills and will set you up for life when this game ends. Okay. It's not just about the short-term money. And this is something that I talk about with my professional athletes, because oftentimes we feel like more money is the answer to some of the issues we see with African-American athletes. I beg to differ. Okay. Lottery winners go broke every day, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It's not just the more money, right? Of course, more money helps, but it's the more money and the education and the experience with dealing with that money that really makes the difference. So you can't have one without the other. So my advice is, let's talk about you first. All right. Let's assess you, your interests, your skills, your passion. Let's look at the opportunities that exist for you that are a natural fit. Okay. And let's pursue those. All money is not good money. Right. But let's pursue opportunities that will add value to what you're trying to do outside of sports.
Here's what I love about what you just said, because, NIL, name, image, and likeness, is really that it has given players an opportunity to receive money now for their name, their image, and their likeness. Because back in the day, the NCAA, obviously they were making all the money, the colleges were making all the monies, and the athletes weren't making anything other than their scholarship. So this NIL has given them an opportunity while they are playing to earn income. And what I'm understanding about the NIL is, in many ways, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, women athletes are probably in the better position to take advantage of it, because I'm understanding that the greater your social media footprint is, where you can connect with a large audience, that helps you to to get contracts or funding, whatever the correct term is, from organizations and businesses. But I love the fact that you are still focusing on after the game, because even if you make this money while you're playing, what are you going to do after? Because that's all going to be short-lived and short-term.
And this is a mental health conversation. Okay. If we connect these dots, right? There are lots of athletes who are playing professionally. They're making millions of bucks and they're miserable. Okay.
Yeah.
We have the stories that you hear about, the single parents who get up every day and they got to go to work. They're earning a paycheck, but they're miserable because they're not doing something they love or that they enjoy. Right. And so what I want to do is attack the way we alleviate that stress and allow people to operate in their gifts. Your gifts will make room for you, right? I truly believe that. Okay.
Yes.
So let's work in some areas, and you got to determine that and make some decisions for yourself. Now, while it forces athletes to be more accountable and to make more decisions that they are responsible for, I still don't think it's fair to the average student athlete. Okay.
Right.
Now, to the elites, they were honestly getting the support and guidance anyway. Okay.
Right.
There were ways to monetize what they were doing, or to have that, waiting for them as soon as they exhaust their eligibility. But for the average student athlete in other sports, maybe not the star player, women, it does present an opportunity for them to be more savvy. And right now, the main way to market yourself is through social media. I will be very, anxious to see, a year from now, okay, right, how that trickle downs, how that affects team culture when you have some players who are more visible and marketable, who may begin to play in their best interests, right? Because now they're looking at stats or things that will get them, more deals and that sort of thing. So I think that we have yet to see, until there is a federal guidance for how this happens. Because I also talked to several coaches at the collegiate ranks who are, concerned about their recruiting and how NIL impacts their recruiting for those schools who don't have, or states that don't have a strong policy. So I just think it's just yet to be seen how it works, but I'm so excited about it. And I'm excited for those student athletes who are able to monetize their name.
And I agree. The fact that others are getting opportunity, to take advantage of things that are available to them. And right. I think that's a very good thing. But let me ask you this, as I said, you're working with, professional athletes and helping them to prepare themselves for after the game. But I want to ask you, what has been your greatest challenge in your profession and what you do? Is it gender, the greatest challenge? Is it race, the greatest challenge? Or guess what? Is it both?
As a professional?
Yeah, and what you do in your industry, what has been your greatest challenge?
Yeah, I would say all of the above. Being a Black woman, of course, in a industry that is predominantly led by white men. Okay. Being taken seriously, being given an opportunity. I've gotten to a point in my career, though, that I do have a lot of relationships. And so, that helps. I would also say being a Black mother, because in an industry that is so fast paced, I can remember early in my career having to travel quite a bit. And now I have 7 and almost 5-year-old. I'm not so willing to do that and sacrifice motherhood. And oftentimes that can be viewed as a disadvantage in this industry, when you're not as flexible as you need to be to accommodate those last minute needs. So I would say being a Black mother. Yeah.
When clients or people are getting help from someone and you're helping people, here's the question I want to ask you. How much hands-on do your clients have and that you recommend? Because sometimes people, athletes, whatever you're doing, you kind of like give the reins to someone else and you just let them take care of it. How much involvement do your players have, or I should say your clients have, and that you really recommend them to be involved in what you're doing for them?
Right. I try to involve them every opportunity, I can, in negotiations, even if they're just listening, okay, or just sitting there, while, I negotiate, in their best interest. They have to be involved. Okay. I do recognize, though, that there is a life cycle or career cycle, I guess, for them. In the beginning, very hands-on. Okay. Extremely hands-on, like almost doing everything. But they're learning, they're taking in a lot in a short period of time, in, the professionalism. I mean, you have media to deal with, you have so many different challenges coming at you at one time that it can be paralyzing. Okay. So very hands-on in the beginning, but over time, slowly, take away some of the supports, in a way that they begin to, mimic what it's going to be like, when it's done. I'm going to have to make these decisions and handle and manage it, but they have to be willing participants throughout the process, so they're not just thrown in the fire when their career ends.
And that's good, because as you say, you're going to have to stand on your own 2 feet. You know, that's just real life. And you need to know, you need to have a mindset that goes just beyond athletics, but like you say, into business, into management, into life,
Right.
because you're going to go through that journey. Yeah.
But most importantly, they have to practice, right?
Okay.
That's what makes them great athletes. They have a lot of time. They're putting in reps and they're actually, you know, pretending almost before they go into battle. It's
Right.
got to be the same way in life. We can't just talk about it and tell them what to do. We have to teach them. And the way that we do that is make them engaged participants in everything we're doing. So, you know, from a tax perspective, they've got to be engaged in those conversations and understand, because that impacts how they move and do things on a daily basis. Legal issues, finances, branding, community service, they have to be involved in those things. And the minute that they allow someone else, okay, to totally control those things, they really expose themselves to being exploited. And we see a lot of that in this industry.
What advice would you give a young athlete coming up, whether through high school, college, and their sole mindset is to get into the league? I'm going to the league, and that's what they're focused on. What advice would you give that young athlete coming up?
Get a mentor. I am a huge proponent of mentorship, and work the relationship, not just, hey, I'm going to call you when I'm in town and just to see what you're doing. No, I mean, get you a mentor who is a veteran or retired athlete, someone who has walked those ropes, okay, who can tell you all the things you don't even know to ask about right now. Right? There's some things you couldn't form in words if you wanted to, because you have no idea what to expect. So get someone who has been where you're trying to go so that they can give you advice and really push you to be the best version you can be, armed with information, to avoid a lot of the mistakes that we see many athletes making. So I would say get you an athletic mentor, someone who has been where you're going, and work that relationship.
If I could just stay on the subject of advice, in many ways, you're a groundbreaker, you know, and a trailblazer of being a black woman in the industry of sports, and you know, after the game development of people's money and finances and mental health. You also mentioned that. What kind of advice would you give someone that wanted to pursue the same career as you have?
Yeah, I would say get a mentor.
Okay.
Educate
How
yourself
about you?
about,
How about you?
yes. And I do a lot of that. I have so many young sport professionals that reach out to me on LinkedIn for mentorship, but someone that can prepare you for the rigors of this business, because it is not for the faint at heart.
Right.
It is very time consuming. And then I work with a lot of international athletes. Okay. One of my top clients now, Sunny Weems, is playing in the Chinese Basketball Association, 3-time back-to-back champion. I want to throw that in there because they're going for their 4th, which would be amazing. And it adds an entirely different list of challenges, right? You have time differences. Okay. So he's 12, 13 hours ahead of me. So, you know, I have to adjust my schedule when we're having business meetings, when we are, you know, connecting about his business. I have to be knowledgeable
Mm-hmm.
about various things in the international market in order to advise him properly. And so I would say, if someone is trying to get in this business, you need to be prepared and gather all the information you can, because you have to have tough skin. You have to be persistent, and you have to be incredibly disciplined, right? To be able to deliver on everything that you say you're going to do. So.
And you know, that's great advice. I love the advice of having a mentor, and especially because I always believe one of the main purposes for a mentor is that they have already made the mistakes for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Exactly. They did you the favor. They did it for you, and all you have to do is listen, because they're going to
Yeah.
give you some great advice. As we begin to bring the conversation to a close, and we've been having a beautiful conversation, and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on the show this week. You know, I always ask a question of my guests, and it's called I call it the challenge and change question,
Mm.
because our show is, we call it the place where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. And so
Yeah.
my question to you is, what would you say that you have embraced? What change have you embraced? And where would you say that you have challenged any kind of traditional norms?
Yeah. The change I have embraced most is that, athletes are empowered. Okay. They're empowered. They have access to so many resources and so much information that we have to help them navigate those things. We
Mm-hmm.
all do, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can't just allow them to hold the bag. Um, I would say, you know, the place that I have challenged, things the most, or that I will be in the coming weeks and years, is just this institutional norm that we have to gauge activity. I told an athlete what to do. We had the seminar and gave them some information. If they didn't use it, that's them. Um, I want to challenge that system and hold our athlete development industry. And some of that's non-traditional, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
of that's agents or people outside the lines. Hold them more accountable for the processes that they put in place to assist these young people, for the time that they devote to preparing them. Because truthfully, the way things are operating now, it's set up for them to be exploited. And that is extremely detrimental, particularly to the African American community, because these types of extracurriculars are such an attractive avenue out and a way for them to come back and sow into their communities. And so we have got to lift our community by lifting our leaders, and we have to do a better job of making sure that they're prepared to navigate. So I want to challenge, this institution we have in place. And because we're in a shift right now, there's a lot of disruption happening throughout the industry. This is the perfect time to innovate and create. So,
Yeah, I love that. And I'm always inspired by, people who will challenge the norms and what is so tradition, or say traditional, that people do. And we have to have a mind shift, a mind
yeah,
shift in order to
that's where it
progress.
starts.
Yeah,
That's where it
absolutely.
starts. Shifting the perspective. I was just having this conversation with a colleague yesterday. It's not about assigning blame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
very different when you talk about blaming someone, because automatically you're going to be defensive. We are doing great things. We are. And I'm not saying that nothing great is happening. It's not about blaming. It's about assigning responsibility. But how about this? Let's shift the way we even think about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have an opportunity to be a leader in this space, to be a trailblazer, to create something new that can truly shift things. And if you want to think of it this way, you get the credit. Okay. So we're not blaming, we're not pointing the finger. The situation is what it is. However, you do, if you have any influence over an athlete's life, you do have an opportunity to do something great and something that can really, really, really change lives for the better. Right. So
Yes, yes, absolutely. And again, I love that particular part about what you have just shared. Now, we mentioned your two books. At least I mentioned the first one, and then you brought the second. So just talk about the first one, because I know that's the book that you're
yes.
using to help athletes with. And if you
Yeah.
so want to hit on the second one again, you may.
Yes. So my first published work, which became a bestseller, very proud of that. Surviving the Lights, a professional athlete's playbook to avoiding the curse. What I wanted to do through that work is lay out all the different areas that athletes become professionals in outside of just the athletic portion, right? They're so laser focused on the game. But you've got to be a professional, of course, in your money, in the way that you handle yourself, in the way that you take care of your body, in the way that you handle your team, in the way that you engage in your community. And so my whole thing is I want you to be pro ready. Pro is for professional, but it's not just professional athlete. I want you to be a professional in every single thing that you touch. And so I've had the opportunity of using that book with high school student athletes. I have worked with the NFL and provided it to several collegiate athletes and other institutions, just to get them thinking of the holistic work that's got to happen for them to survive the lights, right? And that's my way of basically saying succeeding beyond sports. My next work that is coming out, and I've just have some amazing people who've sewn into this, I'm very excited, is entitled Plan 2, TOO, Plan 2, right? Not Plan A, not Plan B, not life after sports, because the psychological impact of those words, I think, causes athletes to procrastinate, right? Plan 2, right? Guiding your athlete to wealth and the best mental health. This work is designed for the people who support athletes, okay? Because I think we need a blueprint as well to figure out how we can best aid and enhance what they're doing. And so the whole concept here is it's a 3-step process to help athlete development people learn how to connect with athletes, meet them where they are. Right. We're so busy trying to bring them where we are, but they don't know. They don't know. OK,
right.
Let's meet them where they are. And this is how you help them devise something outside of sports. Plan 2. While you're playing, you can still build something great that will make that transition so much easier. And there's a simple 3-step process to do that. So I'm very excited to put that out to the athlete development community.
And when is the second book coming out? It's still in the works.
Within the next 30 days. I'm just waiting on my foreword to be written. So I'm hoping within the next 30 days that we can get that out this spring.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, here's what we're going to do, because as we're going to close this conversation, the first thing I want you to tell us is how can my listeners connect with you, and then where can they get both books, where they can get their hands on it?
Yes. So you can connect with me via my website, TywannaSmith.com, TywannaSmith.com, and you'll have all of my information there. Information when my book is ready will be available there on how to purchase, but my books are available on Amazon. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook, primarily Tywanna D. Smith, and I would love, for followers to connect with me there.
Tywanna, I want to thank you for taking the time to come on our show. Yes. This was a very special conversation, because as I said to you prior to us going live, that usually I talk to just athletes and coaches and athletic directors. But today I talked to someone who has vision for after the game, realizing that you can't play forever. At one point or another, the game is going to end, and you have to have a mindset to, as you say in your book, survive the lights.
Have a plan.
Exactly. A plan.
Put it in place now.
Yeah. Right. And I love that. And I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. And as I say to all of my guests, you have gone beyond the culture. And I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to talk about something I'm passionate about. So thank you.
All right now. Now, if you want to continue to hear inspiring interviews like the one you heard today, I want you to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite streaming platform. Also, rate the show and please leave a comment. I would also love it if you would share this podcast with your friends to let them know that we're on. Finally, you can email me at beyondtheculturepodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. This is your host, Dr. David M. Walker, and we'll talk again on Beyond the Culture. Take care.